Welcome to this presentation by Juno Ritfield, Human Resources as the Third Party Neutral. Juno is a fervent trainer and presenter on diversity, inclusion in the workplace, and tolerance. He has devoted many years to understanding interactions and perceptions of diverse cultures. Juno's own perceptions as a foreign-born and naturalized citizen allow him to convey his message to cultivate awareness on various interpretations of verbal and nonverbal communications across different cultures. Juno was born in one of the few or perhaps only countries in the world where you can find a Jewish synagogue and an Islam mosque side by side and sharing a common parking lot. Juno asked himself the question, if respect and diversity tolerance in a small country is possible, why can't it be done in our great nation? Ladies and gentlemen, Juno.
Good greetings, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Cheryl, for the introduction. I am so glad to be here. I know we have about 35 minutes, and I will try to get through all of it. So let's jump right to it, to human resources as the third party neutral. Why did I select, or we select, human resources? And if you're scratching your head and say, that's where all the complaints go, you're absolutely right. Whether it has to do with human resources or not, the first thing the boss does or someone does, I'm going to who? And you probably guessed it, HR. So HR has more become the third party neutral. You'll see why I'm saying shortly, why I say third party neutral rather than the mediator. We'll cover that because I know you're thinking that saying, well, that's a mediator. Well, or it could be an arbiter. It's a third party neutral, and we'll cover it soon here. I am with the Alternative Dispute Resolution Academy, which is a subdivision of the Resolute Mediation and Arbitration, Inc. I love teaching. I love the whole part of dispute resolution. Having served over 25 years in the armed services, I will tell you, when you have seen conflict, you always hope for a better day, that there is something better. But there is something better out there, and that is us taking a part in the dispute resolution process. That is a bit about me. Cheryl gave the introduction already, so I'm not going to spend much time here. I will say that I do plenty of mediations. I am certified by the Florida Supreme Court as a county family circuit. I also serve as a mediator in the state of Virginia, as a special education, and also as an employment law mediator as well for the city of Charlottesville recently. Okay, so I've done quite a few. Now I've established my credibility. Let's now move forward and make this about you. Resolving dispute in the workplace. Oh boy, you scratch your head saying like, do we have some of those? And you're absolutely right. You have that. Anywhere there are people working or there is some productivity, you can have conflict. If there is no conflict, I will guarantee you that probably you'll say no one is working because everyone is staying out of each other's way. So something is wrong. So you're going to have some conflict. But how we deal with it is what makes the difference, is what makes an organization, or what makes you and I successful in achieving that common goal that we are hired to do. So here's a preamble for HR, to give you a little workup here. So as HR professional, and even if you're not as an HR professional, if you're in a management, a team lead position, you're considered leadership. You're considered the quote unquote, the them, all right? And every organization has a them versus us. Okay, no matter what you do, oh, them, who are them? Oh, the higher ups. Who are them in an organization? Oh, the ones who've been here longer. You'll go, and that is the averaging story that every organization has a them versus. So even if you're not an HR professional and you are in a leadership, a team lead, you are going to have to deal with some kind of conflict. with subordinates or people around you and peers. So we deal with a host of workplace issues, and we help managers and employees to hear each other out and figure out the differences. And that is where HR comes into play. Because as soon as someone has an issue or just want to vent, who do they go to? HR, or someone close to HR. And if they can't get along with the boss, HR. All right, what do I do then? Resolve the conflict or file a complaint. And this is where they want to be heard. So sometimes there are performance issues, attendance issues, and we have clarifications, expectations issues as well. Roles, communication, style issue, personality issues, favoritism issues, all of that comes into play. Holding here for a second, I'm going to give you an example. This is a recently when someone called me and said, "Well, I just got fired." I'm like, what happened? And she said, "Well, my boss, the new boss I've gotten, she has no experience, and she gives me a lot of work to do. But then she says I miss XYZ, and so I asked for a meeting with her and to establish a rapport to ask her um, uh, each day to give you priority, give me her priority for the day so I can prioritize my work." And she says she walks into the boss's office and says, "Ma'am, can I speak to you? You gave me this list. Um, which one of these are your priorities for the day so that I can organize according to your schedule?" And the boss answers, "Oh no, Missy, we're not going to play this here." All right. I don't do role reversals where you tell me what my priority is going to be. All right. So they went to mediation. All right. The whole point behind here is these are the issues that most will end up at HR desk, and this would happen in this situation. It ended up to go to HR mediated, but the person was still let go for other reasons. All right. So often HR help teams to mediate. And I say here mediate, you can say facilitate. I will speak to you later about when I say mediator versus a third party neutral in the workplace, and there's good reasons for that. But for now, we'll say mediate and to help both sides come to a resolution so that everyone can focus on getting back to work in a positive and constructive manner. And we say positive and constructive manner because you can go back to work and the issues are still lingering. So we have to help the parties, we have to help the employees get over the hurdles and move forward. Yeah, I you often say you don't have to like each other. I'm not pushing you to like each other, but at least you have to look at what you can do to tackle the issues and not the person. That's what we say in legal as well, right? When you address the opposing counsel, we say tackle the problem, not the person, right? So you stay focused on the issues so that you work together to get it done. But this is where the struggles happens in the workplace where parties begin to blame each other, and it's all about perception. So things we will cover here, I will scan through because it's a lot to talk about when we talk about negotiation, we talk about dispute resolution. But the basic things I want to cover in this session is the basic terms of conflict in the workplace. The characteristic of a neutral. Here I say neutral, and I will explain certainly why. Well, HR needs to keep it in perspective. I have a chart that I've made use for years. My boss had told me one time, uh, she said, when I asked her the question, well, ma'am, why is this certain way? She says, um, you do realize that perhaps I am privy to more information that I cannot disclose to you, even if I wanted to. That rang a bell to me that I had to trust. So putting things in perspective, she did it for me, and now I'm giving it to you and help others as well. Was then set the agenda, stage setting for dispute resolution, and then we'll talk about moving from complaint to commitment. All right, we don't want the parties to leave and still having issues. We want them to move from complaint to commitment to getting the stuff done. And then negotiation and language, we'll touch on that, the characteristics of the issues, develop an action plan. We won't do a role play here, but I kind of put it up front so we're going to quickly go through that. The main things I want to cover are the first four things in the very top of our of this agenda, not necessarily in this order. Okay, I know you're ready to go, so here we go. Before we can start with conflict in the workplace, we have to understand why it happens and what is really occurring. A lot of times, parties are blaming each other for the other person being in their way. But here is what Keegan says: interpersonal, interpersonal problems emerge because of our reality isn't another person's reality. We come from different places. Conflict, feedback, and interpersonal disagreement can all be understood as an expression of our human ability to compose meaning. And that is what we hire diversity. We hire more people to bring different expressions, abilities, all that. We see things differently so the company can be more competitive, the organization can grow, we can get our accolades. But here it is, different meanings from others, right? Unto itself, having different meanings isn't a problem. But here's the problem. When we make it a problem, we make it a problem if we insist that our meaning is better, is the better one, without ever exploring its validity. So look, and you had some situation where boss may say, well, right now, I need you to do it. Just do it. Well, boss, here's some things have changed. No, just do it this way. Okay, why is it still this way? Don't ask many questions. Get it done. This is where, as a supervisor, as in an HR, you can have the parties reflect. Why is your this way still explore the valid way to go? Because times have changed. Have them reflect. And then they will see that, hey, wait a minute, let me first explore the validity of my thinking rather than try to convince others to think the way I think. Maybe I should explore more the other person's thinking around me. Okay, so this is what happens. Here's another one for you. Conflict arises when a difference between two or more people necessities, and I put emphasis here, change in at least one person, in order for their engagement to continue and to develop. The differences cannot coexist without some adjustment. Okay, everybody wants a promotion. Well, let me take it back. Not everybody wants a promotion, because I know some people, when as a HR person or supervisor or officer trying to promote someone, they told me, no, sir, I'd rather just be right where I'm at. As long as nobody messes with my territory, I'm good, boss. No, I don't want more responsibility. Huh? They've told me that. They're good what they do, but I still need them to grow and adjust. So long as adjustments takes place, we're good to go. So here it is. So let's say resources in the workplace. We know workplaces, organizations have financial constraints, and then people are looking for resources, and they have to fight for the same resources or compete for the same resources. One will blame the other, but actually the problem is not the other person. It is the financial situation of the organization. So some adjustments will have to make, such as lending and borrowing and time uses. Until that adjustment happen, you will have problems. And this is what Jordan is saying here. The difference cannot coexist without some adjustment. And this is we start moving the pieces as the picture indicate on the right. And this is where HR comes into the picture. And this is where leaders come into uh, the uh, the problem solving, putting the pieces, the puzzles back together, fill in the blank. Remember earlier I said when I spoke to my boss many years back as a young lieutenant, I asked her, so, well, ma'am, why is this XYZ? And she can see sense that I really wanted to know so I can live in her mindset and produce the best result I can and she says to me, I am not looking for you to bring me a 100% product. I am looking for at least 80% because from you, at least because I don't know what my own 100% until the general tells me, right? And she says, also keep in mind that I am privy to more information than I can ever tell you. So you have to trust me on that. And these are the conversations that HR, that leaders can help put people the pieces together and trust will begin to build. So how does HR comes into play? Well, you probably have seen this before. And does this sound like your workplace? The picture here, the chronicle, I hope it makes you smile a bit and say, well, yeah, I've seen this. Where HR goes to the boss and says, sir, John and Carl are refusing to work together on the project. Boss scratches his head and says, well, let the conflict resolution team handle it. Yeah, looking at HR, right? And HR says, but we don't have a conflict resolution team. And you see, boss, they're all smart and he's thinking wisely, finger in the mouth and says, well, it sounds like we need one. Ask John and Carl to help you get that started. How does that sound for you? It sounds in the workplace, right? It may not necessarily be this wording, but that is what happens. Go to boss, find a solution. What happens here is HR is throwing in right in the middle, smack in the middle of it, and you have work to do because there isn't preventive training being done. Remind people why they're there. Everything happens on a whim, right? And this is where it happens. They won't work together. Tensions have been building for many moons. And now it is reactive problem solving instead of preventive. Training, training, training. When I mean training, meaning reminding people why they're there and who they're working with. So here are some scenarios. Here are some scenarios, sorry. Here are some scenarios. These are role plays that I had put towards the end, but I figured for this situation, I'll bring them up a bit. Here are some issues that folks have from a huge corporation that I did training with have given me. They wanted to know how do we help the manager. Here's scenario number one. And we do role plays here, help the leaders, help the managers move through the communication process. And this is what they wanted to know. A manager is providing performance coaching to an employee. The employee feels like the coach is happening to this is happening to them because the employee is in a protected class. She feels like there is favoritism for other employees, and the employee feels like he or she is being singled out. Okay, another one I have in group number two. An employee comes to HR and complains about their manager style. They say the manager is very different. There you go. It's very difficult, and the HR person has heard this from other employees as well. However, the HR person has also observed the manager's style firsthand and knows that the manager just have personality flaws. So like issues there, right? So if you knew it, something had to be done. Might be some training and make the person aware. The HR person also knows that the employee has style issues as well. This is a bad marriage. They will never be buddy-buddy. How do you get these people to work together? Well, I have been successful in that. Matter of fact, at one point in my work, uh, they refused to work together, and I using the same kind of the criteria. About 3 months later, in they were, I wouldn't say best of friends, but you could not separate them. Both came back to my office and says, "Sir, you making us work together or showing us how to work together was the best decision ever. I love working with this person. When I am when I'm down, I can count on this person to pick up this piece. Just let that person know, hey, today I don't feel too well. I might be slower with my work, and they pick up the pieces, vice versa. Okay, and this is where we work, or Academy works with manager and leader. The third one here, group, the employee has small children. He or she may need some accommodation in order to perform his or her job. The manager is a stickler for the rules and wants everyone at the desk at 8 o'clock, no matter what. The employee is a good performer, but she has challenges sometimes due to daycare needs. Sometimes she knows when issues are going to arise when daycare needs, but other times she doesn't know when an issue will arise. Now, these are all issues that have been happening that I've helped resolve. The situation is in group number 3 is that the employee knew that the boss likes to hang at the water cooler and tell people stories. So she was not telling boss that she was going through difficult divorce and needed at least for a time period some help. Group number 4, there are personality conflict on a team. There are a few account planners that don't get along with the area supervisors or the AEs, is what the company had given me. And the kernel team members also have conflict with the AEs. What happens there, it seems like the whole organization is about to explode. There is so much competition concerning in the departments that know that they're beginning to block each other. So what do you do here? You work with department managers to move them forward to have their organization or the departments work together rather than the members as well, but at least the departments and how they complement each other. So here is the question that you as HR and as leaders you guys have. How to assist the manager and the employee to move past the complaint and move towards a resolution? How does the HR person help employees and manager to have a conversation? How do you help the manager and the employee come with a solution that works? How can we assist employees and manager through the difficult conversation? Lastly, how to eliminate or reduce the chances of parties seeing the process as being one-sided. Most likely as a leader, most likely as a HR, you help people resolve their conflict, and then after a few days, you find that you are now the one defending you, and you're like, I did what? Because they see HR as part of the leadership team, right? HR always take leadership side. You've heard it 100 times. How do we prevent this? We prevent this happening when we put the onus on the parties to resolve their conflict and give them the resources without you as leader telling them what needs to be happening or whose fault it is. And this is what we'll talk about here. You have to remember that it is all about perception. The way the person who feels the victim is perceiving it, or the way the person who is resolving the issues is perceiving it. The manager who has been blamed is also the victim. Okay, it's all about perception. Remember that. Or thinking is creativity is going to be different from person and how they see an issue resolved. Earlier, I said, well, I was very careful saying, hey, mediator in the workplace, as an HR in the workplace. The reason I'm saying that because when you think now mediator has become more of a profession. Everybody can be a mediator or comes a mediator, but now it has become more a profession. And there are ethical rules involved. And there are sanctions involved. There could be lawsuits involved and a bunch of stuff. So HR is very careful. So we rather say third party neutral, meaning If you want to resolve the issue in an informal way, come talk to me. We have an area where we can talk, but I am not going to be too concerned about certain rules, but still the basic rules of for solving dispute in the workplace, the ethics rule still need to be adhered to. So we use the term more third-party neutral in the workplace, rather like I'm talking to the mediator, because the mediator needs to be totally impartial, right? And it's not so much about whether you think you're going to be impartial, it's also the perception of the party. So here we have the rules for Florida for mediators that I need to adhere to. It says the rules for mediator, rule 10 to 20 says is to reduce the obstacles and communication and assist in identifying the issues and exploring the alternatives with others. So, and it's voluntary. The federal government deals more with the Uniform Mediation Act. The Uniform Mediation also says, for the purposes of this chapter, the term mediation means a process in which a mediator facilitates communication and negotiation between the parties to assist them in reaching a voluntary agreement regarding their dispute. So it's voluntary on the party side. The third party neutral, the mediator doesn't tell the parties how are they going to resolve it. They come up with a solution. We lead them to the to a resolution. And here are the functions. We have to remain impartial. Okay, part of the rules. If you cannot be impartial, because everyone talks about John, how he's late, how he's sloppy, how is this, and you already been influenced by it, don't try to take it on. You're only going to be accused again as being one-sided, and then you will be as, I did what? Perhaps someone from a different department can handle it. Trained, the more people are trained in the organization, the more venues, folks you have to help facilitate the conflict and help facilitate training. You empower the parties to speak up and also come up with resolutions that work. So what I like about empowering parties in the workplace is that when they think about how they're resolving things for themselves, they're actually also coming for with a plan that propels the organization forward. Well, they may say, this is not only beneficial for me, but for the organization, it will do X, Y, and Z. You see? The third party neutral also does reality testing. We talked about it earlier, where you may do a role play. For instance, if perhaps this person is privy to more information. How about the resources? Is this particular resource you're asking for available? Can that person provide it? Yes, I know because XYZ got it, and therefore I should get it too. You hear it many times, right? So I know boss is able to do it. Well, then boss says, but the reality is your perception is wrong because it didn't come from me. It came from the reasonable accommodation fund or whatever it may be, unless you bring a doctor's note. So reality testing is what we do. And then create an action plan to move forward. Quickly on talking about prejudging. Most likely parties have told you their stories, and since all parties bring different perceptions to the situation, you as a third party neutral, the mediator should not assume all parties fit in the same box. These are biases, and I want to put it out there. I already know this type of people. It's the them mentality. They think they're better than us. Oh, I've seen him. I saw how he walked, or I see how loud he talks. This group of people, that's who they are. Okay, this is a time to take yourself out of the dispute resolution role here. The meeting must listen carefully and appreciate the unique stance which individual will highlight given the appropriate forum for doing so. Okay, so doing so allows you to give a fresh perspective, a perspective of the issue. You remember the parties are probably so embattled in their mind, even though they haven't said anything to each other. But when they went home or in the bus somewhere, they start, I call it picture building. They start building all these scenarios in their head that don't even exist. And here you are bringing a fresh perspective to the to uh, to the situation, keeping it in perspective. You ask, well, how you've spoken so a lot of the conflict, but how do you see HR? How do you see um, the leader, most like the third party neutral, specifically here in this instance, the HR person, the human resource person, help have an advantage? And this slide here that I put together, and I use it quite often. I created this a while back when I was an HR supervisor, and I wanted to know what it is that I can use, put it on my wall, and in order to get the manager, the employees to come to a resolution. What is it from this standpoint that I can do? Well, first of all, what we need to do, we need to recognize, first ask the question, who owns the dispute? If it's someone in your department, okay, yes, but if they own the dispute, they will have to resolve the dispute. All right, they come to you, they sit down, it is their dispute, not yours. They have to resolve it. You are helping them. Now, somebody's dispute can be something totally unrelated to a whole different department, but they think it's happening here, but it's just somewhere else. So the the resolution process is not even in their power because they don't have control over the budget. You just can point them to put in perspective that where the origin may come and how they would need to have to share resources. Who will be obligated by the agreed terms? All right. In organizations, you have to be careful. You don't want to have the parties tie the organization to something that the organization doesn't have anything to do it. Um, an agreement here would be between themselves. All right. I'll conduct myself civilly. When I come in the morning, I will do X, Y, Z according to the rules and standards of the organization. All right. What venues the parties have chosen? A venue, the different types of dispute resolution of where a third party neutral can take place. So you have mediation, arbitration. You also have facilitation, and you have a combination of those. So if they have chosen mediation or facilitation, then in facilitation, normally the parties just talk, all right, get over it. And the third party neutral helps them communicate without yelling, screaming at each other. Mediation would tend to come find a resolution, hopefully being written down somewhere as a reminder. And what role is the third party neutral to perform? The mediator. And here is where HR has an advantage. HR sees a lot of the relevant rules, the policies. They go to trainings that, according to for laws and prior case out and have laws and prior case outcome. These they can help the parties with. So they can point out company policies that it is not this person's fault because this is a company policy and the way it's being read may be a bit wrong, but let's figure it out. State and federal regulations and laws you can help bring to the table. You can offer how other people have resolved things in the past, prior results, and how did it work. And sometimes it would be also looking at not because something is right, the right thing, well, is it the right thing to do? Not because something is allowable, I mean, you're allowed to do it, or it can be done, mean it's morally right in this situation. The best question you can ask when you do reality testing is if this action that we're contemplating, or the conduct that you have demonstrated, or the agreement that we're putting together for that you guys agree on, if this were to take place 10 times, repeated 10 times, what will that picture look like? Ask them the question. Let me give an example here. Um, One of the scenarios I indicated is where the young lady was going through a divorce. Didn't want to tell boss. She's been a good worker, but just lately has been showing up for late for work, and she didn't want to tell the boss. And her boss says, or supervisor says, "Well, I'm writing you up. You're gonna get fired. One more time, you're late." Okay. Of course, it goes to HR, and the parties begin to speak. Now, finally, employee says to supervisor, the reason I don't feel comfortable coming to you because you're always talking to XYZ person, and you always hear you at the water cooler, and I know you're going to spread my business, right? And that's how it is. And I'm a religious person, and just going to divorce is already devastating. I don't have a car. I have to now, before my husband drove me to work, now I have to take the bus and the train, and I never know whether the train's going to be late. And on top of it, daycare is not open until certain times. So by the time I run back to the bus, which I do hurry, um, I'm ready 5 minutes late. So therefore, and this may go on for at least until the divorce is final. Okay. So finally, there was so the resolution that they came up with is, all right, so if you are 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, you need to make up that time. All right. Employee and supervisor agreed, well, okay, you can then, how about if I work through lunch? And then to make up the time and I can still leave here as with everybody else. They both began to agree, but here's where HR, knowing the company policy, state and federal rule, prior results, and morality wrongs, stepped in and can say, I commend you all for this particular, I commend you all for this coming to a resolution. However, working on your lunch break will violate the fair labor laws. So we do need to um, redress that. So how about if you were working 5 minutes after work, clean up the necessary stuff that, for instance, the PAI that is laying on the table, and that should do for this particular for your time, and then we'll guys reconvene in about, let's say, in 4 months from now, and see how can adjust the plan. This is how HR can help the parties putting things in perspective. We're now at approximately a few minutes remaining, like 5 more minutes remaining. And we'll talk about agenda development. So by this time, the parties have told you their version of the event that occurred and brought them to mediation. They probably have shared with you, and I bolded here, they think of the other party's version of events. With that, I would say, you remember the day before mediation or any kind of event, the party probably can't sleep. What I normally have them do is have them write down their thoughts on paper. That begins the dispute resolution process, where they begin to think or see their own part in the dispute. And have them think about, write down what it is they want out of it, the dispute resolution. What do they want out of the meeting? Because it's hard to resolve anything if the parties don't know what they want. What are you asking for? So have them reflect on it by writing it down on paper. They may have asked you what they should do. Be careful here on giving judgment. Be careful with the uh, we call it UPL, practical license of law. Tell them, hey, you should do this. You know, we call it the bearish lawyers, right? We don't want to be careful there, but you can tell them, hey, well, you can certainly have a discussion on this topic. They may be highly emotional and completely passive. Some people are just worn out. They're like, I am done. So you must now lend a degree of structure to the discussion of the issue. Then you help the parties characterize the issues. For example, know what type of issue we're talking about. Is it the emotional issue, the financial issue? What are we talking about? I will say here that certain things you cannot really mediate. You cannot find a resolution informal, such as, okay, sexual harassment, someone asked. Oh, that needs to go to the other department because this is more than just a dispute. All right. But there are certain things as such as prejudice and bigotry, right? Can you mediate those things? You're not going to change person overnight. But what you can mediate is how they're going to work together and getting an agreement to getting things done. Know that an issue is some matter, a practice, or action that enhances or frustrates, alters, or in some way adversely affects a person's interest, goal, or needs. And the role as the mediator, that mediation focus on negotiating issues that people are capable of and have the resources for resolving. So by definition, not all issues can be negotiated because the parties do not have all the resources necessary to resolve every problem for every person. So here as HR as a third party neutral, I want to go back to my slide here, is that we want to set things in perspective for the parties and guide them towards um, having them settle the rules, setting uh, setting the terms of how they're going to work each other according to company policies um, in an agreement, and hopefully you have helped another successful dispute to be resolved, and the company will be more, or organization, more productive. I thank you so much for your time. This has been a quick brief as human resources as a third party neutral, putting the pieces together. Thank you.